On the morning of October 5th, 2012, in Westminster, Colorado, something absolutely heartbreaking happened. 10-year-old Jessica Ridgeway left for school, just like any other day. She was this bright, independent fifth grader, so proud that she just started using her own alarm clock. But that day, she never made it to class. This is the story of that tragic day and the desperate hunt for a predator that followed. You know, everyone who knew Jessica said the same thing. She was just a ray of sunshine. Her teachers described her as this joyous, smiley girl, always helpful, always kind. She'd make up her own little dance routines. She loved animals. She just had this incredible enthusiasm for life. As her grandmother put it, she was exuberant, the kind of kid who just lights up a room.
So that morning, everything seemed totally normal. At 7:45, Jessica's alarm goes off, she gets up. By 8:30, she's all bundled up in her coat and heads out the door for a short walk to meet her friends at the park. But she never got there. The school, of course, called her mom Sarah around 10 a.m., but Sarah worked the night shift, so she was asleep. It wasn't until 4:30 that afternoon, hours later, that she heard that voicemail. And that's when that feeling, the one every parent absolutely dreads, just washed over her. Jessica was missing.
As night started to fall, things just got more and more desperate. By 9:15 that night, investigators were pretty sure Jessica had been abducted, and they issued an Amber Alert. That news just sent this wave of fear through the whole community of Westminster.
But you know what? The response from the community was just immediate and frankly overwhelming. Over 1,000 volunteers, can you imagine that, came out in the freezing cold to help search. They were combing through parks, creeks, neighborhoods, right alongside law enforcement. It just goes to show you how deeply this little girl's disappearance shook every single person. And the scale of the investigation was just massive. The police, the FBI, 12 other agencies, they were absolutely swamped with information. They had to follow up on over 4,000 tips and ended up taking 700 DNA samples from people in the area. The entire community was under a microscope as they searched for any tiny clue that could lead them to Jessica.
A few days into the search, they got a break. A man found Jessica's backpack, her glasses, and a water bottle just sitting on a sidewalk, but it was 6.5 miles from her home. Her mom, Sarah, later said she felt this tiny sliver of hope. You know, she thought if someone just tossed the backpack, maybe, just maybe, Jessica was still alive.
But that hope, it was just tragically short-lived. A few days later, a maintenance worker found human remains, and DNA testing confirmed the absolute worst. It was Jessica. The Westminster Police Chief, Lee Burke, had to make this awful announcement, vowing that the search was over, but the hunt for a killer had just begun. So investigators got their first major lead by connecting Jessica's case to a completely different crime. It turns out DNA from Jessica's body was a match to an attack from 4 months earlier. A 22-year-old woman had been jogging at Kettner Lake when a man grabbed her from behind with a chloroform-soaked rag. She managed to fight him off and escape, but he left DNA behind. And now, that same DNA linked him directly to Jessica's murder. It was the same guy. With this chilling realization that there was a predator living among them, the FBI released a behavioral profile. And these weren't just random guesses. This stuff is based on real criminal psychology. Things like suddenly changing your appearance, that's often an attempt to avoid being identified. And big shifts in personality or routine, that can be a sign of intense psychological stress or guilt. They were basically telling people, look closely at your neighbors, your friends, the killer is hiding in plain sight. And then the investigation took a really dramatic turn. Police released a photo of a small wooden cross they found with Jessica's remains. A neighbor saw it, recognized it, and called the FBI. She was worried about a 17-year-old in her neighborhood who was, well, fascinated with death. His name was Austin Sigg. So Police Co. talked to Austin, and they take a DNA sample. But then, a critical, almost unbelievable error happened. His sample was somehow lost. An empty envelope with his name on it was sent back to investigators, which made them think his DNA just didn't match. So he was cleared. But then, the media started reporting that the DNA from Jessica's killer was linked to that jogger attack, and Austin knew. He knew it was only a matter of time. The pressure just became too much.
On the morning of October 23rd, Austin goes to his mother, Mindy, and says he has something to tell her. Her heart just sank. The very first thing she asked him was if it was about Jessica. And when he confirmed her absolute worst fear, she just fell to the floor, completely horrified. Austin told her he was going to jail, and in that moment, she knew exactly what she had to do.
In what had to be the single most difficult moment of her entire life, Mindy Sigg picked up the phone and called 911. Her voice was shaking, you could hear it, but she was so resolute. She delivered the shocking news that her own son was claiming he was responsible for the crime that had terrified the entire state.
And the call just got more and more horrifying. The operator was trying to keep her calm, asking for details, and Mindy confirmed the unthinkable. Austin had confessed everything to her, and parts of Jessica's body were still inside their home.
Mindy then put her son on the phone with a 911 operator, and in this calm, direct voice, 17-year-old Austin Sigg made his own chilling confession. He told the operator exactly who he was and exactly what he had done, even confirming he was the one who attacked the jogger at Kettner Lake. Just like that, the manhunt was over.
So, 19 days after Jessica vanished, her killer was in custody. And this arrest, it marked the beginning of the next, really difficult chapter, the long road to justice and the fight to define Jessica's legacy.
Sigg's confession was just bone-chillingly cold and detailed. He described watching Jessica walk by his house before grabbing her and pulling her into his Jeep. He took her home, strangled her, and then, influenced by a forensic science class he'd taken, he dismembered her body in a methodical attempt to get rid of all the evidence.
Now, despite his detailed confession to his mom and a 911, the community was just floored when Austin Sigg initially pleaded not guilty to all charges. But just days before his trial was supposed to start, he changed his plea to guilty. He was ultimately sentenced to life in prison plus another 86 years to be served one after the other.
Now, because Sigg was 17, he wasn't eligible for the death penalty. And technically, he could have been eligible for parole after 40 years. But the judge, seeing the extreme brutality of the crime, said that this case, more than any other, demanded a sentence that would make absolutely sure Sigg never walked free again.
The prosecution's legal strategy here was really smart, and it's what made this possible. The life sentence was for the murder charge, but then they added those 86 years for the kidnapping and sexual assault charges on top of it, consecutively. That legal move completely eliminated any possibility of parole. It guaranteed he would spend the rest of his natural life behind bars.
In the wake of all this tragedy, Jessica's family and the entire community were determined that she would be remembered for the vibrant, wonderful girl she was, not for how she died. Her memory inspired something called the Lassie Project, an alert system to help find other missing kids. A memorial playground was built in her favorite color, purple, with dragonfly designs symbolizing her spirit. And a cheer camp was founded in her name, honoring her dream to be a cheerleader who was kind to everyone.
5 years after losing Jessica, her mom Sarah gave birth to another daughter, Anna Christine. And this wasn't about replacing what was lost, of course not. It was about embracing new hope. The family keeps Jessica's memory so vibrantly alive for her little sister, surrounding them with pictures and reminders of the big sister who is now watching over them.
Jessica Ridgeway's story is just a harrowing reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world. But it's also a story about a mother's unimaginable courage, a community's incredible resilience, and a family's sheer determination to find a way forward. And it raises a really powerful question for all of us.
In the end, it really is about remembering. Sarah once said her family can never be put back together completely. Like a shattered plate, the cracks will always show. But through their love and through the life of her new daughter, Anna, they make sure that Jessica's sparkle, her joy, and her light will never, ever be forgotten.